When there is a franchise that goes on for a long period of time, fans begin to expect certain things from each new installment. These things tend to become what makes these franchises. And without them, or with changing them so much that it becomes something else, that leads fans to revolt or just give up on the franchise entirely. In the scope of today, with opinions constantly changing and being influenced by other things, it's hard for these series to stay relevant and consistently appeal to their fans, old and new. For video games, it's the very same. We've seen many ups and downs over the years from different game franchises. Throughout those years, fans have found out what they want and what they expect from each installment. With all these expectations, you would think that eventually there would be a game that is like a blueprint for every other game in the series. A game that meets all expectations. The standard. Hi, my name is Travis, and you clicking on this video, that's what's up. For this video, I wanted to get back into reviewing games again. I have been playing the Resident Evil games on stream recently, and I've been really enjoying them, so much so that I've decided to make videos on them. I've been playing the remakes, so those are going to be the games I will be looking at for these videos. Also, I'm only playing the mainline games, so no Code Veronica or anything like that. I've only played 2 through 8 so far, with skipping 1 for now, hence why I am starting with 2. Typically in people's top Resident Evil games, 2 tends to show up, if not 1, it's definitely in the top 3. But why is that? Personally, I think Resident Evil 2 has everything you could ever want from a Resident Evil game. I think it's the standard for Resident Evil. In this video, I want to explain to you why I think that. So, without further ado, let's get into it. The Standard, a Resident Evil 2 retrospective. I figured what better place to start this video than the story. I would say for the most part, the story is the biggest thing that I gravitate towards when playing the Resident Evil games. Resident Evil 2's story is an interesting one because you have to play 2 campaigns to get the full story. There's Leon's side and Claire's side. And you can just play one side, but then the story ends up feeling like something's missing. You'll definitely want to play both sides because the game does a great job of making you want to play more. Also, figuring out the missing bits through the other character has such a rewarding feeling. No matter who you play as first, your second run will always be shorter. One thing I love that the devs did in this game is that it actually zooms past certain parts of the story that were already seen in the first playthrough, so you are only really focusing on the new parts of the story. And if you're someone like me who typically doesn't like to replay story games unless it's been a long time, then this would really be amazing for you. I know there are a lot of people like that, so this helps with replayability. Once you play the full story and piece everything together, it really is a great story. It has a few overlapping elements and genres that mesh together perfectly. It has romance with Ada and Leon with their first meeting, up to protecting each other throughout the story, and their kiss close to the end of the game. Their entire relationship and dynamic is one of the best parts of not just Resident Evil 2, but the entire franchise, and it all starts here. The other relationships are great as well, like the siblingship between Leon and Claire, and the mother-daughter relationship between Claire and Sherry. Besides romance, the story has plenty of action. Not as much as other Resident Evil games, but it is still here. Specific parts I can think of is trying to escape the incinerator as Ada, or fighting your way through the lab trying to find the G-Virus or the cure for Sherry. And speaking of Sherry, a big part of the story I really enjoyed has to do with her. Sherry's story explores relationship dynamics such as her parents being complete shit for not really caring for her as much as their jobs, but also caring so much for her that even when becoming a monster or knocking on death's door, she is the only thing that's on their mind. I think it's great that at least they both know that they suck so much that in the end they wanted to make up for it. Part I love the most about Sherry's story is how it shows loss within losing both of her parents and loneliness in her being an orphan and when she was captured by Police Chief Irons. Going through the story, it shows loss and loneliness, but also Sherry's gaining a new family through Leon and Claire. It's great storytelling that you don't see too often in the horror genre, which is another part of the storytelling that this game does great. So great, in fact, that I'm giving it its own section. Horror is a big aspect in my life. It is most definitely my favorite genre. So anywhere it is, whether it is movies or in this case games, it's going to pique my interest, and that interest will thrive or die depending on how good or bad that horror is done. Throughout each Resident Evil installment, it seems like as you go on, the focus on horror and being genuinely scary dwindles, and it is more prevalent with the first few games. And I'm glad to say, with this remake, they turned the horror aspect back up, and it shows throughout the entire game. Starting with the beginning, exploring the gas station in the dark can be terrifying, especially if you're not used to or know what is in store for you with the zombies. And the same can be said with moving on to the police station. Except for the big difference is the police station is much bigger and it seems like the darkness can go on forever. Yes, there are safe areas like the main hall, but for the most part, you're not going to be spending too much time there if you want to progress. When first starting the game, I was dreading going back into that first area outside the main hall. There was just something about it that made me want to stay away. Now, normally with these games, they can be scary at first, and it does go away once you get into it a bit, or specifically with Resident Evil games when you get that shoddy. With Resident Evil 2, it is like that for small parts, but the majority of the time, the fear factor increases or just stays consistent throughout. The big example being my biggest nemesis. No, not that one. We'll get to you. This fucker, Mr. X. This big motherfucker is terrifying. Let me tell you something. When this dude first showed up, I had jack shit to defend myself, so it made things even scarier. He had me running back to the safe room, hoping he'd just leave. And the thing that makes Mr. X so scary isn't that he's big and an unstoppable presence. It's when he's not even in eyesight. You can hear his big ass boots stomping throughout the entire station, getting louder and louder as he gets closer. Even in safe rooms, you hear his ass, and it just makes you not want to come out. The Licker's first appearance is in this game as well, and they're just as or even more terrifying than Mr. X. The fact that they're so strong and so fast, but also you can't run while near them adds so much more tension while playing. The way that they hunt by sound makes a tight situation even tougher when you're constantly clenching your ass cheeks hoping you don't let out a squeaker, because if you do, the Licker is going to lick your ass. Then you're going to be checking your pants because your fart is now a shit. My go-to rule when playing Resident Evil games is never trust a fart when the Licker is around. The scariest part is when you don't deal with the Licker, because then you can have Mr. X running around at the same time. During my playthrough, this is what happened, and let me tell you, it is the worst. I wanted to run because Mr. X was getting closer and closing in on me, but I couldn't run because the Licker was going to get me. It was a rough situation, but it was so fun. Which brings me to Chapter 3. Resident Evil 2 is really fun to play. When I first started it, I wasn't really in the mood to play, but after the first hour or two, I was locked in. And that's something I can't really say for every Resident Evil game. RE2 also does a really great job of keeping you hooked throughout the whole game, with consistently challenging and engaging puzzles, but also unique boss fights that make you not want to put the controller down. The greatest part of the gameplay for Resident Evil 2 is the replayability. Starting with all the different type of playstyles there are. There are so many ways you can play the game with different loadouts and outfits, making each run feel different enough to keep you coming back for another run, but similar enough that you keep the core of the game without getting lost and focusing on one thing. Another part of the replayability is seeing the time and grade that you get at the end. The speedrunning aspect for these games is insane to me. Seeing how fast you can run it, getting faster time than before, it can be really rewarding. You can also go the other route and play it slow and be a collector, getting every little thing possible to be fully kitted out by the end of the game. And believe me, there's so many little side quests and puzzles that you can do to really flesh out that end time. Also, there are 4 stories that you can play, with Claire and Leon both having their main run along with their B-sides, adding replayability there too. The cool thing is that the B-sides and second runs change things up too, like answers to puzzles keeping the challenging aspect there, which I know a lot of people will appreciate. Speaking of puzzles, the puzzles in Resident Evil 2 are really enjoyable and challenging enough to actually make you think, but not too hard that you'll just be stuck on it all day. There is a good balance there, but also a great balance of action too, which I personally appreciate. I'm not a big puzzle guy, so when I can just get a great puzzle done and get back to fighting, it's really nice. There is a big part of Resident Evil games though, where nothing ever dies, so you tend to fight the same boss multiple times, but even so, it doesn't get boring. In fact, they always find a way to switch things up and keep you on your feet. Each boss in Resident Evil 2 is like that. It finds a way to continually make fighting the same guy unique and fun. I've said before that they give you a lot of stuff and plenty of opportunities to pick things up, but that doesn't mean you can go through the game using everything willy-nilly. A cool part of Resident Evil 2 are the strategies that you have to apply so you avoid running out of everything. You have to always make sure you have a good amount of ammo because, believe me, things in this game can be bullet sponges. You also have to do a good job at managing your heals because in certain situations, if you don't have enough heals, you're going to be fucked. Managing your storage is also another thing that you have to consider for your strategies as well. Handling key items and stuff that you need can be tough, and in the beginning with low storage, it's a big pain. Even with more storage later, managing your items can be tricky, but it can also be fun and challenging. It's just another thing you have to think about. The gameplay of Resident Evil 2 is so fun for many different reasons. The action, the thought-provoking puzzles, the horror that keeps you on your feet, the replayability of it all, the strategies that you have to apply to survive. The way you can play your own way, like, I could go on, but I think you get the gist of it. Hopefully after this, you'll want to play the game and just see for yourself. What makes Resident Evil 2 the standard for me is how it has all these great things that you have come to expect from Resident Evil over the years, but it doesn't lean too much into any one of them. What makes it great is how it's the perfect mix of everything, whether it's the story, horror, gameplay, or anything else. Resident Evil 2 keeps it simple and gives the fans what they want. It doesn't try to shake anything up that could possibly mess up the formula, and it doesn't take away anything that people are going to miss to make room for something that nobody would care about. It does what it needs to, and it finds the way to make everyone happy. Resident Evil 2 Remake is the perfect example of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm glad with the remakes that they took the basics of 2 and just added on to it. It was the perfect decision in my opinion. Sometimes sticking with in the box is what is needed. Sometimes in life, just playing your role and doing your part is the best thing that you can do. In certain cases, doing what is needed makes you stand out more than being extra. I think that is the reason why Resident Evil 2 is in many people's top 3. Because it does what it's needed and becomes what you expect. What you want. It becomes your standard. It becomes the standard. I think that's great advice. Keep improving, but know your standards and become the standard. If you made it here to the end, I want to thank you. You guys are amazing for watching the whole thing. And if you're wondering, as of right now, Resident Evil 2 Remake is in my top 3 Resident Evil games. It's sitting right at number 3. If you want to know what's above them, then you'll just have to wait for my other Resident Evil reviews, which is probably what's coming up here soon. My next thing is I'm going to be finishing up my playthrough of the Resident Evil games with 6 and my replay of 7. So be on the lookout for that. And I will stream those, so they will be announced a little bit beforehand, probably. I don't know, before I start to stream, probably like a couple hours or something like that. Maybe even a day. I don't know. We'll get into that. My next videos are going to be coming back to my ZRA series, starting with Shadows of Evil. Hopefully, I'll have that done within the next 2 weeks of posting this, but we'll see. But for now, I do want to say thank you again for watching, and praise God. I have been Travis. Have a good one.